Hello and welcome. I am Piers Ridyard, CEO of RDX Works, a core developer of the decentralized finance protocol, Radix, a public ledger entirely focused on bringing DeFi into the mainstream. Today, we are doing a roundtable with Matthew Hine, Chief Product Officer of RDX Works, and Russell Harvey, Chief Technology Officer of RDX Works, to talk a little bit more about Radix Connect for mobile. Now, Radix Connect for mobile has been something that we've been working on for quite a while, and we're pretty excited about it. Because we think that it creates a truly magical Web3 experience right from your mobile phone. So to kick us off, I thought it would be good for Matt to sort of lay down a bit about the vision of the Radix wallet and why we don't start with the idea that most wallets do of pulling the functionality that we see in Web3 into the mobile wallet and instead start from a different principle first.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, those that have been paying attention, we talk about this a good bit, that we made the decision that the Radix wallet the wallet itself was really most appropriately expressed as a mobile application and really focus on making it a great mobile application. And the reason for that was really stepping back and thinking about what do we think the wallet of the future really looks like? If you think of just this general idea of now you're going to be able to have your own digital assets, you're going to be able to connect to dApps. What does a wallet look like in that world? And it should be something that you carry around with you everywhere, gives you access to your digital stuff, and lets you connect your digital stuff to anything you want. Like it's just kind of obvious that's what you'd want to have happen. So starting from that goal rather than starting from what's easy to do? Well, okay, it's easy to connect to a dApp if it's a browser connection extension or whatever. Let's just start from that first principle, what should the wallet experience be? And so it was really clear it needed to be a mobile application. If you could make it actually be able to connect applications anywhere, if you could actually make it secure, if you could actually make it convenient, all those sorts of things. And so that's where we've been putting in a lot of this work. The secure part of it has a whole lot to do with our focus on multi-factor, which we're going to be, this is like the mechanisms there on the network. We're going to be implementing this wallet. That's going to be a key part of making sure that you can carry this wallet around in your pocket, but you can still bring in multiple factors that have a very secure experience. Like it's, bank-like security, let's say. I know it's a very loaded term, but, it's not going to be, well, there's a single private key that's loaded onto your phone. And if someone can crack your phone, there goes all your money. That's not going to be acceptable. So we wanted to have something that was a lot more robust. So the security part of it, we put a lot of focus on. But then the other part of it that informs the Radix Connect for mobile is this idea of being able to connect that wallet anywhere. So, immediately when we came out with the Radix wallet at Babylon, people were like, "Oh, it's a mobile application. Cool. We've always wanted a mobile application. When's the desktop application coming out?" Mm-hmm. We're like, no, there's not going to be a desktop application. Well, why isn't there a desktop? I want to do stuff on my desktop. Well, that's why we make it so that Radix Connect can connect to a desktop application really easy. That's in fact why we started there. We have the very, very thin, lightweight little connector extension, which allows you to link your wallet to your web browser, provides sort of a nice secure connection. And now any web application, any Radix application running in your desktop web browser can trivially make requests to your wallet, go back and forth. It's easy for developers. It's easy for users. You keep that center of control and convenience in your pocket with you, but you don't have the friction of having to now I got to switch to a desktop wallet rather than my mobile wallet. So then the next step after that was really obviously going to have to be all right, well, if I have the wallet on my phone, wouldn't it be great if I could do everything on my phone? I could do dApps on the fly as I was walking around. We didn't start with that one because when we talked to people that were really doing kind of serious DeFi trading, they're like, no, I do everything on desktop. That's where I want to live. So we did that one first. But we definitely think mobile is the future in general. That's part of why we did a mobile wallet. And so we had to make sure that the Radix Connect concept, that technology, would also work with dApp web pages running in your mobile web browser, and then also even native applications. You can imagine someone building a native DEX application that would be a mobile application. We'd want that to be able to connect with the wallet as well. So, but the website is where we wanted to start as the next step, is how do we make mobile applications on your phone also work with the Radix wallet on your phone? And that's what this is all about. So we wanted to make sure that was done in a way that deliver that same sort of frictionless experience. It's not enough to just sort of check the box and say I can use a dApp on my phone. it's like the way this is often done and today is really silly. It's like, well, like my wallet application has its own little in-app browser and I can load applications in there and then it can talk to my wallet. It's like, do we really think that's the future? Do we think that people are going to be like, you're going to be doing everything like through your wallet application? I think the future of Web3 is that we're just using our web browser, and if you can get to a web page that just happens to have Web3 features, just happens to have Radix features, oh great, I connect my Radix wallet to it. So we built the entire thing around that concept of doing things where
I think we
you
should
can
hang out
seamlessly go
on that point a little bit, because I think it's
Mm.
in the article that you wrote around this. I think there's some really interesting analogies that you pull out. One of them is if you think about your banking application, when you go onto your banking application and you want to go and shop on Amazon, you don't browse Amazon from your banking application. You don't
Right.
browse, you don't book your holidays from your banking application. Your banking
Right.
application is where you hold your money.
Mhm.
And then you have different ways in which you then connect that money to places online. And a lot of that, the way that that's done is kind of a historical anathema, or a historical sort of factor to how payments evolved. Like we had a bank card, and that bank card was essentially an authorization token, first physically and then digitally, to be able to pull money out of our bank accounts. And that was kind of our connectivity. The bank card was the connectivity. That's what you took to all of these places. You also talk about this idea of, if you want to shop on Amazon, you don't load up your Amazon account with credit. You go and shop on Amazon, and you have your bank cards that you've connected to your Amazon account, and then you can shop on Amazon with those bank cards. I think that this idea of what is each thing's area of responsibility and like area of control is a really interesting one. And in some ways it's quite philosophical, but I think that it's quite interesting to think about this. When I say that about Web 2, you go, well, of course you wouldn't do it like that. Of course you wouldn't, browse Amazon from your bank account.
Right.
But when you push it into Web 3, I think often because the number of applications that are available is quite small, it's a small universe of things you can do.
Right.
You get wallets that automatically start to pull these functionality in. So you have a wallet that will have a built-in DEX. You'll have a wallet that will have built-in lend borrow capabilities. You'll have a wallet that will have built-in on and off ramping. And all of these features and functions, when you have a small universe of things you could choose, feel like an obvious step. For the Argent wallet is a great example of a wallet that really focuses on user experience. And the first thing they went to once they got past the sort of the multi-factor recovery stuff is they started going, well, let's put Aave in our wallet, let's put Uniswap in our wallet.
Right. And it's like you can see what's behind it. They're like, we want to make the user experience for this better. And basically, like, the methods that are available to them to connect to the dApps are not great. So they're like, well, to make the user experience better, we've got to pull everything in there. And now it gets everyone trained. Now everyone in the crypto ecosystem is like, okay, I guess the right way of doing this is we just got to start, why can't you just build Uniswap into your wallet? Why can't you build this into your wallet? And we're like, actually, wouldn't it be nicer if you could just seamlessly connect your wallet to whatever you want without having to do it inside the wallet? And people go, oh yeah, I hadn't thought of that.
And I think it's also interesting from the point of view of if you think of the philosophy, if you think about how the internet evolved, and you also think of the philosophy of the user experience, like when the internet was small, AOL made a lot of sense, and you didn't really need a web browser because there wasn't a lot on the internet. But as the internet got very bigger, you needed this general purpose way of browsing the internet, because you could never really define exactly how you wanted the interactions to be. You just sort of define this toolkit that anyone could create something. And then if you also think about it from the point of view of, now there isn't just one DEX. There are many, many DEXs. So why is Uniswap the default choice within a wallet for being able to swap? Like, does that not create another centralization problem? You're now creating a centralization point in the wallet in who they choose as the built-in applications. You also create a constraint on the wallet because they have to continually add more and more functionality to the wallet to be able to let these applications exist. And then they suddenly have to start thinking about app browsing, like, how do I present to the user 20 different DEX options, and then let them choose the right one and then make sure that's integrated correctly. So instead, with the Radix wallet, what we did is we started from the principle that there's a small number of things that the wallet does, and then there's a very clear way in which you have connectivity to other applications, in which what the desires the user is expressing on the application can be passed across to the wallet, can be viewed and read by the user via the transaction manifest, which is a really important point, because if you were interacting with something in Ethereum land, what's being passed across to the wallet is very unparsable. You don't really know what the actions the user wants to do, which makes it, again, more easy to create a user experience by pushing that into the wallet. Whereas in Radix, you kind of go, look, we think the world of Web3 and DeFi is going to be huge. There's going to be millions of applications for all different ways in which you can, in the same way that there are millions of places that I can go and use my bank card and spend. So the Mobile Connect or Radix Connect becomes the concept of the bank card. It becomes this universal way in which a user can express desire to be able to spend or do actions within Web3.
Yeah, I mean, that brings us to, there's some really good patterns that you can work from on this. I mean, if you think about the function of a digital wallet, in our opinion, it does lots of things, but they're kind of like these two really fundamental things that it does. One of them is it controls my accounts and controls how applications can interact with my accounts. And then the other thing that we've started doing, which is like very, very thin on outside Radix, but we've taken very seriously, is this is a really nice login mechanism. When I'm coming to a website, like, this is not a concept that's going to go away. Persona-based logins are a really important thing. And so if you look at kind of analogous things in the Web 2 space about like how these problems tend to get solved, if you look at like the account thing, it's actually interesting. Like you say, like, most places in the world, the bank card is really a solution to this. It's sort of like this abstracted thing you can connect anywhere. But there is, if you're from Scandinavia, you're probably familiar, like the banking system there does some really cool things where they've got this little interbank system set up where that I can actually use my bank app and like directly use that to pay for things in other apps. And it's a really nice, smooth user experience. They did, honestly, an awesome job with it. It's just, it kind of tosses back and forth between these apps and so forth. And we took actually a lot of inspiration from that. It's like, yeah, that's really how it should be, but it should be decentralized. It should be, because even with the Scandinavian banking applications, you're still basically, when you're switching over to your banking wallet, let's say, you're still fundamentally sort of connecting to this siloed system, and it's resolving a payment on the back end between them and merchants and so forth. And they've got some traditional rails for doing that. But they got the user experience to the point where it was very sort of interconnected. So we want to provide that, but do it in a truly net Web3 way. The fact that the user is always control of the transactions, the user is always control of what they're going to share. They're always in control of their own assets. So that was, I think that informed a lot of the implementation of Radix Connect for mobile, is being able to meet that same sort of level. And this is the experience that you'll feel for it, is you use a dApp wherever you want. It doesn't matter if you're in an in-app browser in Twitter or if you're using Chrome or whatever you want. You just go connect a wallet. It flips to the wallet, you do what you want to do, you provide your approvals, and then you switch back to your browser again. Same thing on the login side. If you look at where the Web 2 world is going on logins, it's passkeys. Passkeys by far has the big momentum right now in the Web 2 space for improving the login experience. And they're doing it, once again, with a mobile phone. It's this idea that you have your phone, you can connect your phone anywhere, you can log into anything with this, and there's a secure mechanism to do that. Very similar to what we're doing with personas, except once again, we're doing it in a real Web3 way, where it's actually decentralized. The network is doing your multi-factor, not a key being held on a cloud server. So, we feel like we are, rather than trying to fight the natural user patterns that people want out of the web at large, we're just trying to bring Web3 features to the web, which means that the user experience actually is kind of familiar, but you don't have to give up control to get that.
Right. And I think that the really interesting thing about the Radix Connect is how thin it is. The necessity for once you have the transaction manifest, which I think is really key to all of this, right? Because the transaction manifest is essentially the information that the application is passing over to the wallet of what the user actions are going to be approved from the wallet side. You don't need to have much complexity in terms of functionality for Radix Connect. It can stay very, very thin, and as a result, you only have to make very few security assumptions about it, because your security assumptions are in what is being signed on the wallet and what the user is doing on the website. And all Radix Connect is just connecting those two things together. It's a way of making the two things being able to find each other some way over the internet and having a really smooth user experience around that. Maybe you could talk a little bit more about what Radix Connect is versus something like MetaMask and how those then manifest as a result of the transaction manifest.
Yeah, and it's not even just the transaction manifest also. Like we basically have established with Radix Connect, the first generation of Radix Connect for desktop, we built basically a request passing interface to the wallet. The wallet understands the idea that I'm the wallet, I'm controlling the user's funds, I'm protecting the user, but you, DApp, you are allowed to make certain requests to me. You can say, hey, wallet, I'd like a login, please. Or, hey, wallet, here's a transaction that I think you might be interested in. Or, hey, wallet, here's some data that I would like to get from you. Or, hey, wallet, can you please share an account with me? All of these are we have this kind of this now pretty well documented request interface for the wallet. So now it's just a matter of kind of coming up with a basic transport mechanism so that you can have different kinds of dApp that can make those requests to the wallet, and the wallet can then respond to those requests in whatever appropriate way. So for desktop, we were using we've got the connector extension. We were using sort of this WebRTC based mechanism that sort of passes these things encrypted over the internet. And then we've also got for mobile, we're doing kind of this sort of hybrid mechanism where we're using deep linking, but then we're also using like a relay service to provide the responses back. But again, as you said, one of the cool things is that it's not as if there's this, these very crucial high security assumptions about, well, there's some nuclear payload being passed over Radix Connect, and if someone can intercept that, they can do a transaction on your behalf or something like this. It's all just sort of making friendly requests to the wallet, and all the security critical stuff happens within the wallet. You're reviewing the transaction yourself, and you can see what's going to happen. You don't have to trust the website. You're doing all the signing on your phone, and you do all the multi-factor with the phone and on the network. You're not trusting some third-party system to do your multi-factor. All of that is controlled by the wallet, and that's really what the wallet's role is to provide that function, and then get you back over the dApp you were using. It's sort of do the security critical thing, get you back to what you were doing. That's what we are always trying to do.
Maybe, Russ, you could talk a little bit about this, because I think that there's a really interesting philosophy in terms of how everything in the Radix code base has been built, which is around sort of trust nothing, and how that sort of emerges in every layer of the stack, and including with Radix Connect.
Yeah, it is exactly the same philosophy. It's the same way that if anybody's read any of Josh's articles that were published a bit on how the VM works, it's much more the case where it's a very layered security approach, and each layer gives no trust to the layer above it. It's the exact same thing with the way the wallet behaves, where, as you mentioned, I get a request that comes to me and say that request is, here's a manifest that I'd like you to sign. The wallet takes that and says, maybe this app is doing something, maybe the user doesn't want to do these things. So maybe they picked something on the website, but the manifest I got is not what that user in their actual intent was. And so this is why we did the whole transaction preview thing as part of it, which is you can now go take a look at what is it that I'm signing, what apps am I interacting with, what things are going to come out of my account or accounts that I control. And crucially, what things am I expecting to get back? And I can put guarantees on those things. Some things in the manifest are automatically guaranteed. Like if it says, I'm putting 100 XRD back to your account at the end, that has to happen or it will fail. If it's saying I'm putting an indefinite amount of some token back, then the wallet runs a preview that says, looks like when I run a preview, you're going to get back 50 e-money. But just in case, I've automatically added a guarantee that says, say your default user setting is I want 100% of the preview, 50 e-money has to happen. The wallet modifies the manifest so that the user is protected if the manifest that arrived did not protect the user by default. This is completely a core philosophy that, again, because we designed the whole stack to work this way and to always be thinking of, how is it as a consumer of DeFi, I'm getting what I expect, I'm getting what I want, because in the decentralized world, I don't have this authority I can appeal to go, hey, I got defrauded, come make me whole, come go after them, put them in prison, that sort of thing. You don't have that mechanism available to you. So you have to build all these protections in, and you have to build predictability into the system. And that's exactly the same philosophy with the wallet. And I think mention it, but just want to be clear, everybody understands. When you're doing Radix Connect for mobile, it's the same thing where when I'm in my wallet and I'm reviewing the transaction and signing it, my wallet is submitting it to the network at that point. It is not, I'm now passing it back to the application and then it's going to maybe submit it or not. It's exactly like it is you've already experienced with the desktop one, where once you're in your wallet, you're in control. You're either rejecting the transaction or approving it and signing it and having it submitted. And then you're back to the other application, which the wallet's handoff is just to say, hey, the user canceled it, or the user did sign it, and here's a transaction ID. So I've now thrown something useful back to you. So now you on your side go, oh, that was the TX ID. Let me go have a nice user experience where I can now poll for that transaction to be completed in a second or so, and then go, great, looks like it was successful. It's a handoff. You can think of at all times. It said, who's got the ball in their court? You pass the ball to the user to review the security critical thing and either do it or don't do it. And then you pass it back to the application with, here's what the user's choice was.
Yeah, and I think it's
but at
really
no point am I trusting the DApp to do the right thing.
Yeah, and I think it's really critical to double down on this. The important part of this is not just that the user is reviewing the transaction, but that the transaction is human readable. Like in many cases, you will always have a transaction review for signing on every network, but it's on Radix with the transaction manifest and the transaction preview that it's actually human readable, that you can see all of the steps that are going to occur, what assets are being interacted, what assets are being used, what DApp is being interacted with. The permissions are only as broad as is strictly necessary for that user action, and the user can't end up in a situation where they get something other than what they expect getting back, because that's enforced. And this breaking out of those things in human readable form was another crucial aspect to sort of making this handoff handback work.
Right. And one of the crucial differences that I think a lot of people miss is it's the actual transaction content that is human readable, that is parsable by a wallet. It's not a simulation. It's not saying, okay, well, right now we can pre-run the transaction and say, I can see this and this and this would happen, and then present that to the user in a human readable form. That's great. Again, it makes it a little bit more sort of informative to the user, but still fundamentally the assumption you're making here is going, hey user, this is what I think this thing is going to do. But it might be that at the moment you run it, something completely different happens. It's very easy to write smart contract logic that kind of like throws off false signals more or less about what's going to happen. Whereas in the transaction manifest, you are literally looking at the instructions to the network itself. Hey, network, I want this to come out of my account. I want to interact with this thing, and I expect this to come back. If any of those things aren't true, forget the whole thing. There's no trust involved here, which is the unique thing that I think it's not just the human readability. It's the fact that it is actually the transaction content, not a simulation.
Right. And I think that's really important when you think about connecting to anything, right? Like the idea that with Radix Connect, I could connect on a computer sitting in a mobile in a internet cafe, or I could be connecting to a computer at my friend's house. Like I never actually give up control over my thing. Unlike if I put my card details into a internet cafe computer or into my friend's computer, like now I'm actually providing the authority to do something to those computers with that information. Whereas in this case, you're never doing that. You when you connect, all you're doing is allowing a relay between the phone and whatever it is that you want to do, and whatever device it is that you want to connect to for whatever reason. And like this could be expanded to many, many things. Right now, it's just desktop and mobile, but that could work for smart TVs. It could work for mobile for Xbox games. It could work for things just in the street. Like if you're walking down the street and there's a billboard and you've got a QR code, you can connect to that right there, and you can buy something potentially. Like the ability to connect to something but still hold the underlying security of the thing and make that connection not have any authority to do anything on your behalf, and that always being with the phone, I think is so powerful.
Yeah, like the internet cafe use case is an interesting one to walk through. It's interesting because if you think about like the MetaMask model, like imagine that, like you're at an internet cafe and you want to do some transaction there. It's like, okay, you're now installing MetaMask in their browser. You're now like entering your seed phrase to recover access to that account. So you're basically like loading up that computer with trust. and then you can do some stuff on that, and then maybe you try to like delete it afterward. But anyone would be insane to even think about this. Hopefully everyone in crypto is familiar enough to know you should never be doing this. Never enter your seed phrase into a strange computer. I mean, even if you're using a ledger device, it's still like, all right, you're installing this piece of software in there and you're linking it to your ledger, and it's sort of, there's still an element of sort of trust and just like hokiness in the user experience, where it's like with Radix Connect for mobile, like there's no problem with this. I mean, if you sat down at an internet I mean, well, I guess that wouldn't be mobile at that point. But I mean, if you, sure, on the desktop version of it's the same thing. If you sat down an internet cafe, you install the connector extension. The connector extension is just a little relay. There's no keys in there. There's no really logic to speak of. It's just a relay. You connect that, you scan the QR code, and now you're making transactions with dApps sitting there. And you could just leave. You don't have to clean up anything when you leave even. It's like you've provided no trust to that computer. All the trust was held in this single place on your phone, which is really the way it should be.
So obviously there's a lot of tech that goes on in the background here, Russ. So it'd be good to sort of just talk around some of the chewy problems you guys had to go through to make Radix Connect work.
Yeah, the mobile development space in particular is it's inconsistent, and it's very, iOS in particular is very dogmatic. It's very, you're going to do things a certain way. And things like, I want to bounce between an application back to my application and then go back like that. That's exactly what the whole thing is kind of designed to not let you do. They're trying to protect users from things that are throwing you unexpectedly to a different app and seizing control of the user experience. There's a whole set of challenges that comes with that. And then there is a second set of, to aid user experiences. We've all become used to, I'm in an application on my phone. I'm in Reddit or something like that. And then if I click a web link, I get a little web browser that's not, it's like using, say on iOS, I'm using WebKit under the hood, but I'm not in Safari. I'm in this little mini browser that's embedded in there, and you have the little thing in the top left for go back to. Like, it's a nice user experience when you're not trying to do anything creative. But right, when you're trying to do then a message pass, I'm now in this in-app browser because I've seen an ad for something on, I'm in a Twitter application, and I've seen an ad, and now I'm looking like, oh, I want to now do this, but this is going to want to send an ad, a transaction to my Radix wallet, or it's going to want to do a login. This was super fun, and fun in the not fun at all way of thinking about things to try to get through all this. So I'd say we were relentless in saying it has to be magical. It has to just work. We got, in the space of, I don't know, less than a week, we got to, it works if you're not in an in-app browser and you're just on Safari, on iOS, and on Chrome, on Android. We got that working instantaneously, right? That was not a problem. But that's not magical. That's the only places it works. It doesn't work in in-app browsers. So I don't know if Matt wants to tell the particular war stories, but that was the main delay on all these things was getting into the system that just works in all these conditions to a point where overwhelmingly it always works. And we found I think there's literally only one browser we tested where in one application that in the in-app browser it doesn't work. I think there's literally just one left in our testing now that we say, yes, if you're in the situation, you're going to have to break out to your normal browser.
Yeah, it was like, it was this really, I mean, it's typical Radix problems, right? It was this really interesting process of trying to explore what was technically feasible at the same time that we're trying to think about like, what is the ideal user experience for this? And like both sides of it were actually really tricky. And the technical side, like Russ said, it was sort of like all these like very mobile OS specific limitations, very specific browser limitations about how they tend to link out to other apps. We had to like map all that out to figure out what those could do. And then even the user experience side, I think, was less obvious than you might think. You might think of like, oh, okay, it's just like, I've got a browser, I click the button, it goes to my wallet, and then it comes back again, right? Like, well, actually, it's like, it's pretty common for people to have multiple browsers that they want to use for different things. And it's really, like Russ said, it's really common to like open a little browser window within another application, just to kind of expect that to work. Everybody has usually like 1,000 tabs open on the browser at any given time. You don't want to just sort of like get sent back and be like, oh shit, now I got to like find where that tab was where I was working before. So like there was all of this thing of like, what does this really mean? Like if you think about what should Web3 feel like on mobile, there was a lot of that mapping out of what those real circumstances were. And interestingly, it's sort of like, I think it came to actually a pretty natural place where there's sort of this sort of like natural handoff between the browser and the wallet, where basically like the browser, you're primarily doing stuff. Your browser inherently, you could like, the wallet has no idea and doesn't care where you're doing stuff in the web browser. I'm in my 14th tab of my second web browser or whatever like this, and you're doing something and I want to do something on DApp. Wallet shouldn't have to care about that. So cool. What happens is we've taken the approach where the entire implementation kind of assumes that the DApp is it's sort of a request model, where basically it's sort of like the wallet's just sitting there kind of going like, if you want to ask me for something, I'm open. And the DApp can go, hey, wallet, here's the thing that I want. And the wallet goes, cool. All right, I'm going to look at that request. I'm going to handle what I need to handle with the wallet. And then when you're done, just go back to wherever you were. So it's like, and the great thing is we can kind of use the built-in mechanisms of the wallet. Like now the UX on every wallet is pretty much set up where you can just do this like swipe back to what you were previously doing. Well, basically in all circumstances, if you just made a request to the wallet, the thing you go back to is exactly the tab you're on, the browser you're using, and you're just right back. And what happens is behind the scenes, the response gets sent to the DApp. So when you go back to the browser, the DApp goes, oh, cool, I got my response. Here, let's keep going. And that works with, that great thing is that works with everything. It doesn't matter if you pulled up an ad in Twitter and you're using a DApp for the first time there, it'll still work. And once we kind of took that philosophy, everything just kind of fell into place, I guess.
That's really cool. That's really cool. So the user experience that you're aiming for is just as smooth and simple as possible. That the user has to think about as little as possible in making sure that it happens. So it doesn't matter what browser they're using, doesn't matter if they're inside a web app, application, web browser,
like an embedded browser in the app.
An embedded browser.
Right.
The Telegram embedded browser, for example, is one that often gets me because I'm just like, I'll click the link and it opens and I'm like, oh God, I have to go somewhere else. But that
smooth user experience, and also just being very sensitive to the fact that it's like, look, Web3 shouldn't be like reinventing the concept of what it means to interact with a web page, which is what a lot of the wallets are doing. It's sort of saying, all right, well, for Web3, you're going to be using the web through our wallet. Like, come on, that's not the way it's going to be.
So I think the last thing to touch on is hardware wallet support.
Actually, before we jump to that though, the other thing we really cared about was the developer experience, because what we also didn't want to do is build this thing out and go, hey devs, now I've created a whole bunch of new workload for you to be able to handle this connection. So if you're a developer, you know what you have to do to make it work? You upgrade your Radix Dap Toolkit to version, it's going to be 2.0, I believe will be the released version this time this comes out. So that's it. And now you don't have to care, is the user on desktop or is the user just directly on their phone for the purpose of interacting with it. What you have to care about is the thing you've had to care about just since the normal Web 2 days, which is if I expect people to come in on mobile, I make a responsive design so that my app looks good on a small screen. But as far as the interactions with the Radix wallet goes, you don't have to care. That's just taken care of for you. It's just abstracted away from you, which was another one of our core design philosophies here, is with the goal being, can we make it so they're not even aware what the user is on unless they look at, what's their reported size of their window and stuff like that. And that's exactly what we were able to achieve. We got, in this case, the holy grail goal here was they literally don't know. It's just the Radix Dap Toolkit handles it. And that's what we were able to get to.
So the only
for devs...
No, I was just going to say, the only thing they have to do is make their mobile, their website responsive to mobile if it's not already.
Make mobile friendly, just like you would any website that you want to be mobile friendly. Yeah, the rest.
I remember back when we first released the wallet and released Radix Dap Toolkit. I remember like originally developers were kind of piling in the documentation and trying to build web apps around this whole concept, and like we got all these questions from developers that were like, "Hey, so like what's the interface to the connector browser extension? Like I'm not seeing that in the documentation. Like how do I talk to the connector extension?" We're like, "No, you don't do that. You don't have to." Like the whole point is you should be abstracted from these mechanisms of like how do you talk to the wallet over the internet and everything. It's just like, so the interface to Radix Dap Toolkit, if you've used it, is basically just making a request. Say like, hey, when the user logs in, this is what I want from the user. When I want a transaction, here's how I send it to the user. how that gets to the wallet, you shouldn't have to think about. And so that's like the entire interface was built around that. So when we went to mobile, same thing. Basically, Radix dApp toolkit just handles that under the hood. It kind of figures like, all right, am I running on desktop or am I running on mobile? If I'm mobile, this is how I send it to the wallet. If I'm a desktop, this is how I send it to the wallet. It knows all this stuff about the connector extension, but you as a developer don't have to think about it, which is as it should be.
And for those devs who way early on were asking, hey, they're wanting sort of a very live interaction. Well, can they be pinging to ask the user if they need more help? It's been 10 seconds since I sent it. Now it should be clear to you, the whole thing was designed under this. You're not going to be able to count on that the wallet always has this live back and forth channel. So when we move to other models like mobile only, the platform does not permit you to be doing like, hey, I'm going to go launch over to this application, come back to me and run some stuff for me in the background. We were counting on all this, that we had to have one model that services all these different ways of handling this connection between things. And so that's why for those months ago that were asking like, how come I don't get this like really frequent back and forth polling style thing so I can see what screen the user's in at this time and all that? Now you're getting the complete picture of, we had to have the interfaces work no matter whether you're desktop connected or mobile or any future things.
Right,
we built this on very much like a discrete, like I want to do this thing, I handle that thing, and then I come back again. Now the use cases that we're talking about, so like, hey, I want to be able to do like, I've got like a game application where I want to be able to do like, more transactions at a higher rate. We totally hear that. And this is something we want to support, but it's not going to be through this mechanism of like tossing over to the wallet. And it's not going to be like, well, I'm going to like pre-authorize 10 transactions or something. Like, I think there's some techniques. I mean, even now, I think there's some things if you have an application, want to talk to us about it, I think there's some advice we can give about terms of like doing, sort of semi-custodial systems where you have your application has the ability of doing high rate transactions without having to touch the wallet at all. And then the future, we're thinking about mechanisms that might allow the wallet to sort of do like some sort of like, pre-authorization, but it would be a different mechanism than what we're doing right now.
Yeah. We certainly talked about this like ever since we did the hackathon, it was before the hackathon, but the hackathon with Red Foo certainly threw it into perspective, where each move of the chess piece required a signing of a transaction. That's not a good user experience for continuous transactions. So like this, and you could also argue that for trading, you can also argue that for many things. So this idea of making it easy for the user for this kind of continuous authorization as well is something that we are thinking long and deep about. And as I think this conversation will make people understand, and like anyone who's been following Radix, everything we do is all around this underlying philosophy of does not preclude. Like the technology that we put together is around what's the long-term goal, what's the short-term goal, and how do we build a continuous implementation roadmap between those two things so that you're getting constant updates and upgrades to what your user experience is and to what's possible on the network.
Right. It's like if you want to bet on a chess match, I mean, can't you can imagine one transaction at the beginning of the match that goes, hey, I'm gonna put up this money behind the chess match. You play the chess match, and at the end there's a resolution transaction. Right. You don't have to do it but move by move. So like there's different ways of doing that.
Right. So last point on this is it's hardware wallets, right? So how does this work with the hardware wallets, and what's the view of hardware wallet support in mobile to mobile or Radix Connect mobile?
You want me to take that?
Sure.
Yeah. So we're continuing to support Ledger hardware devices. That will still work with if you're using a dApp on mobile on your phone, you can still use your hardware Ledger device. Now, the thing to keep in mind is that those of you who have Ledger devices, you're aware that the way in which the wallet connects to the Ledger device is via your PC. So you plug it in via USB to your PC, and the wallet can connect to that and can do whatever you want. That will continue to work. If you're like, let's say you're sitting at your computer, but you want to use an application on your phone, you want to do some stuff. If you need to get a signature from your Ledger device, it'll still go to your PC and say, hey, please connect this and do this. Now, obviously, people are going like, well, if I want to have this fully mobile experience, what if I want to bring my Ledger device with me and I want to do this on the go? And some of the Ledger devices actually have Bluetooth, so are you going to support that? And we get those questions. The plan is not right now to prioritize Bluetooth connectivity to the Ledger devices for a couple of different reasons. Some of them short term, some longer term. For one thing is like support for like the wireless connectivity to Ledger devices is challenging for Ledger. This is not an easy integration where you just sort of like turn on the Bluetooth flag and you can connect the same way. Like there's quite a bit of work we went into making it work on PC, and it would be another chunk of work to make this work on mobile. Certainly doable. It's, other applications do this, but it would be a chunk of work that would take us off of other things. So it's like, it's got to be really well justified for us to do this. And when we think a little bit longer term about this, one of the wonderful things of us going towards MFA and multi-factor is the fact that the nature of a hardware wallet is going to kind of change at that point. It's not going to be, well, you have a hardware device and every single thing you do with that account must go through that hardware device. Now it's going to be more like, well, choose what you want the role of your hardware device to be. And so, for example, my opinion is a ledger device is a really great put it in a drawer device. It's basically like, I don't want to have to use this all the time, but like, yeah,
Make
put
sure
it in a
your
safe.
ledger is safe, gentlemen.
Right. Drawer could be in a safe. It's easy to see. Didn't preclude.
Right.
Does
But
not
it's like-
preclude.
Right. But if you're carrying it around with you all the time, it's sort of like, this doesn't solve the $5 wrench problem, because it's sort of like, all right,
Yep.
you still have the ledger device with you.
You've
and sort of like-
exacerbated the $5 wrench problem pretty bad.
right. You've identified yourself as, here's this thing that definitely has crypto associated with it. Like it's not a great mobile. It's, in our opinion, if you have the option, it's not actually a great device for you to have on the go with you. Now, what is a great device to have on the go with you is the Arculus card. And as we've announced, that Arculus card is something we're going to support once we have MFA. You'll just be able to tap the card to your phone. And as kind of like an additional security factor on doing transactions, we think that's a really, really good mobile option that we think most people want to take advantage of. But this doesn't mean that your ledger support goes away. Like, I mean, I can tell you, like, for my accounts, I am almost certainly going to be setting up many of my own accounts where transactions require both my phone and require an Arculus card. But then if I lose those things, I'm going to have to go to my ledger device. I'm going to have to pull that out of the bank, and I can use that to recover my account. It's a great recovery device. If you still want to use the ledger device as your primary, you can do that. But like, we kind of feel like if people are signing with the ledger device, they're probably sitting at their PC anyway. That's kind of the appropriate environment for it, which is why we're not prioritizing that. I don't expect we're going to be adding wireless support for ledger devices. I think our priority is probably going to be more on adding more and more interesting signing devices. We've talked about YubiKey. That's something we want to do. They've been adding really interesting support recently, but I think that is going to make YubiKey possible as kind of a next one. That's kind of where we want our focus to be.
Right. And so to sort of just drive this home, I suppose, the first version of this for Radix Connect for mobile will be any wallet that is any account that is controlled on your Radix wallet on your phone that doesn't have another factor on it. So isn't a hardware device. So it has to be an account that is controlled directly by your phone. When MFA comes out, you will be able to add extra factors. One of those factors will be the Arculus card. The first factors that you can add are like hardware devices. The Arculus card basically uses the same security mechanisms that the ledger device does. The downside for every other network of a Arculus card is you don't have an ability to preview the transaction like you do on a ledger device. However, on Radix, because of the way the transaction manifest works and the way that human readable transactions work, that doesn't matter. And
Right.
so you have this factor. You can have more than one. You can have one that you have with you, and then you can have one at home, or you can just use your ledger device at home for recovery, as Matt's already described. But then this will allow you to add extra security features. So,
Yep. And I'd say for now, like until we get multi-factor support into the wallet app, I would say that for now, treat your ledger device as a hot wallet, cold wallet thing. Like if treat the ledger device as the thing that sits behind a cold wallet, you keep this at home, you keep it secure, you kind of store your funds there. But if you do want to think you're going to want to do transactions on the go, just move a little bit of funds into a different account. The Radix wallet makes it super easy to create accounts. Just create a hot account, have that just controlled by the key on the phone, put a little tokens in there, and then you can do whatever you want.
yeah, the YOLO account.
The YOLO account.
Awesome.
Maybe the sitting on the toilet account for some
The sitting on the toilet account. This is literally the main use case that I've wanted for this.
Never send me XRD from the toilet, Piers.
Is it? Well, I don't want to send you
tainted
XRD
on
from the
chain.
jar. I just want to be sitting like trading on Aussie Swap or trading on Caviar, trading on DeFi Plaza, or trading on Surge while I'm on the toilet, because I'm clearly just.
We're going to have a company hygiene course, I think, at some point. I'm going to mandate on why this is a bad idea.
No surging on the toilet.
Well, on that point, I think that concludes the discussion around Radix Connect For mobile, I'm super excited about it coming out. Well, it's actually will have come out by the time this comes out. So I'm so excited that it has come out. And
hopefully dApps have been started rapidly updating and so forth. We know that a number of our community dApps have already started building around mobile presentations. So we expect a lot of those are going to be coming online really quickly.
Yeah, super exciting. Matt, Russell, thank you so much, and have a wonderful rest of your day.